Have you ever felt that no matter how hard you try, everything seems to go wrong with people? Relationships start with intensity, deep conversations, promises, laughter, and suddenly, silence, distance, disappearance. You go through old messages trying to understand where everything went wrong. And deep down, a question that has haunted you for years comes back to the surface like a muffled scream. Why doesn't anyone stay? You begin to distrust yourself. Am I the problem? Am I hard to love? Am I doomed to see everything fall apart forever? This doubt eats away at me from within. It's like an invisible wound that no one sees, but that bleeds every time someone leaves. And you try to look strong, to say that you don't care, that it's okay, but it isn't. You are tired. Tired of trying to connect and only getting silence in return. Tired of giving too much and being forgotten as if you never mattered. You might be wondering now, what's wrong with me? But what if that's not the right question? What if the problem isn't exactly you, but rather an invisible mechanism inside you? A mechanism that distorts the way you see people, that makes you run away when you feel affection, or cling desperately when you feel threatened. This mechanism has a name: relational anxiety. Jordan Peterson would say that anxiety is the body screaming for order in a world that seems too chaotic. But what if this chaos isn't just out there? What if he is inside you? Maybe you've never stopped to think like this, but many of your conflicts with people, the withdrawal, the arguments, the fear of rejection, may not be the fault of circumstances. And yes, reflections of a mind that tries to protect itself from pain before it even happens. It's like you're on high alert all the time, even when everything is fine, expecting the worst, anticipating abandonment, and, without realizing it, pushing people away before they even want to go. Because deep down, you believe they're going to leave anyway, and you'd rather suffer with control than be caught off guard. This is anxiety, and it is she who may be sabotaging your relationships without you realizing it. You want connection, but you're afraid of exposure. Wants love, but fears giving it. You want to be understood, but you don't always understand yourself. And here comes the paradox. The more you try to control what you feel, the more you lose control over the people around you. And they feel like you're stuck. They feel your insecurity. They sense your distrust. And in time, they go away. But the most important question here is not, why do people leave? The most important question is, why do you feel like you need to protect yourself from them all the time? This video is a journey to answer that. Not with easy answers, not with self-help phrases, but clearly, with courage, with a new way of seeing what you feel and what it is preventing you from living. If you're ready, let's get started. You may even think that anxiety only appears when you have to speak in public, catch a plane, or face an extreme situation. But the truth is that anxiety hides in much more subtle places. It seeps into the silences between messages, in the 3-second pause before someone responds, in the change of tone of voice, the good night that came colder, in the let's talk later that leaves you ruminating for hours. Relational anxiety doesn't scream. It whispers all the time. It's that automatic thought that something is wrong, that you did something wrong, that he is about to be abandoned again. And the cruelest? Many times it is not even visible to you. You believe you are just being considerate, caring, but in reality, you are trying to control the other person, unconsciously, to avoid being hurt. Jordan Peterson makes a key point about this. Anxiety is the nervous system responding to a threat that is no longer in the present, but in the past, that you have not yet integrated. Your body is in 2025, but your soul is still stuck in 2009. In that betrayal, in that humiliation, in that absence, in that figure that should have protected you, but wasn't there. From this, you developed defense mechanisms, and these mechanisms became his emotional armor. You learn to say whatever when everything inside screams. Learn to say don't worry when you're actually panicking. This armor even protects you from pain, but also isolates you from true affection. And then, the cycle repeats. You know someone, feel connection, but at the slightest sign of threat, you act as if you were at war, with silence, jealous, with control, with removal. Why? Because deep down you believe you can't trust, That sooner or later will happen again. The rejection, the end, to miss, and then you step forward. Act as if you already know the ending of the movie, as if it would be better to end it now than to wait to be discarded. But are you realizing what this does to your life? Anxiety is driving your relationships. It's deciding who stays, who goes. It is shaping your way of loving, of giving yourself, of existing alongside others. And ironically, the more you try to avoid the pain, the more you perpetuate it. That's the trap. You hide behind behavior that seems rational but is actually deeply emotional. And the other, who perhaps even wanted to stay, starts to move away, not because you are not lovable, but because you close yourself off. You become hard, impatient, reactive, and the person begins to feel, I need to walk on eggshells with you. You're always waiting for something bad to happen. You don't trust me. This is what relational anxiety is. It's the fear of surrendering, disguised as, I just want to avoid suffering. But avoid suffering, it is not the same as building love. If you want true love, you're going to have to face anxiety head on. You're going to have to stop running away from yourself and understand that yes, fear is real, but he doesn't need to rule your life anymore. You say you want to connect, but you feel like you're always pushing people away. You say you want stability, but you live in constant expectation that everything will fall apart. You say you want someone who will stay, but you can't trust when someone finally tries. And therein lies the invisible dilemma. You want closeness, but fear real intimacy. Anxiety creates this paradox. It's like a lens that distorts everything you see in human relationships. You start to interpret neutral gestures as rejection, common words like criticism, silences like abandonment. You become a threat decoder all the time, and this system is always hyperactivated. So when someone walks away for any reason, even a legitimate one, your mind screams, see, I knew this person was going to leave me, and you react. But notice, you don't react to what's happening now. You react to what you believe will happen. It's anxiety constructing realities based on memories of pain. And in this dynamic, you start to adopt attitudes that sabotage everything. Give in too quickly to try to secure affection before it ends. Demand constant attention to make sure you are still loved. Create small crises to test whether the other person will actually stay. Jordan Peterson would warn us, emotional chaos isn't just in others, it's in you. And until you organize your inner house, you'll keep tearing down the bridges you're trying to build. Do you understand the depth of this? Your anxiety is like a broken emotional alarm. It rings even when there is no fire, even when the relationship is going well, even when the person is just busy, tired, or living in their own moment. But you can't differentiate between absence and rejection, silence of contempt, abandonment limit, and then he acts like he's being attacked. And this constant reaction, this tension, this attempt to guarantee the other, gets tired. Yes, it tires the other one out. It tires you out. And it creates the very result you fear most, estrangement. And after it's all over, you say, see, I was right. But you don't realize that you created the outcome you feared most. Anxiety convinced you that it was safer to destroy than to risk being destroyed. And here's the harsh truth. You are creating narratives of rejection where there was room for construction. It's as if there's a part of you that prefers to control the pain of abandonment than trusting and taking the risk of experiencing something real. And do you know what the consequence of this is? You stop living. You begin to exist in a state of emotional war. Do not love lightly. Does not trust delivery. It does not show itself truthfully. Anxiety at this point is not just an emotion. It becomes a lifestyle, an addiction to the anticipation of pain. And you think you're protecting your heart, but actually, it is locking him in an emotional prison. And that's why you need to start recognizing this pattern now, because he's eating away at your chances of being happy with someone. If this resonates with you in any way, please subscribe and like. This will help this video reach someone who might be desperate right now, and you'll have been a part of that. You weren't born anxious. You've been conditioned to this. Your mind has been trained, not by will, but by survival, to expect the worst. And that's where one of the most overlooked truths about relationship anxiety comes in. It almost never has anything to do with the yow. Now, she is an emotional response from her past, reacting as if he were still on the battlefield. You are not afraid of people today. You are afraid of repeating yesterday's pains. Jordan Peterson would say that trauma shapes the perceptual structure of reality, and that we are often blind to the possibilities of healthy connection because we have been exposed to the opposite for too long. Think carefully. Maybe you grew up in an environment where affection came with conditions, where you needed to earn love, where it was not safe to express feelings, where the silence of his parents hurt more than any scream. Or maybe you've lived in relationships where giving yourself was synonymous with losing yourself. You gave yourself up and were manipulated. You opened up and were ignored. You trusted and were betrayed. And each of these experiences was like a brick placed in the invisible wall that today separates you from others. So today, when someone approaches, you smile, but inside you are on alert. You speak, but you are afraid of being judged. You surrender, but with your hand ready to pull the rug out from under you. And do you know why this happens? Because your emotional body is still stuck in a protection cycle. It's as if there is a scared child inside you who has learned that love is dangerous. And now every time something starts to seem too good, this child activates the alarm. Don't trust. It will go wrong. It doesn't show. Careful. Relational anxiety is this mechanism, a desperate attempt to prevent the past from repeating itself, even if it means sabotaging the present. And the worst part? You don't even realize you're doing it. You think you're being rational, that he is just following his intuition, but often it's not intuition. It is traumatic conditioning. It's a brain trained to react with fear, with escape, with lock. And the tragic thing is, the more you repeat this pattern, the more it becomes confirmed. You start to believe, I'm not made for relationships. I'm difficult to deal with. People always leave. But no, you are not incapable of loving or being loved. You're just stuck in an emotional script that is no longer necessary. The problem is that no one ever showed you how to get out of it. And here is an essential symbolic key. Everything you repress becomes the secret architect of your destiny, adapted from a common idea between Jung and Peterson. If you keep repressing your pain, it will keep creating the same plots with different characters. You will continue to love in fear, trusting with limits, living relationships as if they were arenas, not refuges. But here's the beginning of change: conscience. You need to start noticing this pattern operating within you. The child who wants to love but doesn't believe it's safe. The adult who wants connection but acts defensively. And then, yes, the healing process begins. Because you don't heal trauma just by thinking positive. You heal trauma shining a light on the inner shadows and acting differently, even when afraid. There is a pain that no one sees. It doesn't show up on exams. It doesn't have an easy technical name to diagnose, but it shapes every gesture, every word, every silence of yours. It's the pain of someone who wants to love but can't trust, of those who want to feel loved but carry the secret conviction that it will never be enough. And here perhaps lies the truth you avoid seeing. You may be addicted to pain, not because he likes to suffer, but because suffering became familiar, and familiarity to the brain is synonymous with safety, even when it hurts. Jordan Peterson talks about this brutally and honestly. People prefer the known hell to the chaos of transformation, and your known hell may be exactly this cycle of anxiety and self-sabotage. You approach, creates connection, but at some point it starts to undermine everything, with doubts, with tests, with subtle charges. Why? Because a part of you believes that sooner or later it will end. So it's better to end up under your control than to be caught off guard. It is better to provoke the end than to passively watch the abandonment. But here's the question that turns the key. Are you reacting to what the person actually does or what you expect them to do? Are you judging the present reality? Or are you projecting the ghosts of the past? And worse, are you using others as a stage to relive old traumas? Trying to get someone today pay for something someone did to you yesterday? It's hard to look at this, it hurts, it scares, but it also liberates. Because when you recognize this pattern, you gain the power to transform it. And here comes one of Peterson's most profound lessons. Take the burden of who you are becoming. In other words, stop waiting for others to save you. Stop seeing yourself as eternally wounded. Start assuming that yes, maybe you are hurting before being hurt. Maybe, deep down, you still don't see yourself as worthy of living a light, deep, true relationship. Maybe you're still trying to prove to someone who's gone that you were worthy of love. But this silent test destroys you inside, because you live trapped in an emotional court that has no judge, no verdict. It's you against yourself. And how long will this continue? How long will you keep waiting for someone to fill a void that was created in your childhood? Here is a symbolic truth. Those who live waiting to be saved almost always give in to new forms of suffering. You need to make peace with the fact that no one will complete you. No one will heal your wounds for you. No one will love your chaos if you hate it yourself. And this is not despair. It's liberation. Because it is at this point that you understand that the path back to healthy relationships passes by you, for looking inside with brutal honesty, for admitting your inner saboteurs, for stopping using anxiety as an excuse to continue hiding, and above all, by choosing day after day, be someone worth being in a relationship with. You believe that your anxiety only appears during major crises, when your chest tightens, when your heart races, when your entire body cries out for help. But the truth is, it seeps into much more subtle things, signals you ignore every day. It appears when you send a message and don't receive an immediate response, when someone takes 3 hours to visualize, and you've already created 3 stories in your mind. It shows up in the way you apologize for everything, even when you've done nothing wrong, or the way you stay silent, holding back an annoyance, until you suddenly explode. These small gestures are silent symptoms, and you may not even realize that they are shaping your relationships. Jordan Peterson would say that anxiety is like a dragon that grows in the shadows. While you pretend not to see it, it feeds on your silence. And what happens? You begin to normalize patterns that are, little by little, destroying your love life. Let's look at some of these signs with brutal clarity. The constant test. You provoke situations to see if the person will actually stay. Maybe not consciously, but you create small tensions. Do you really care about me? I bet you'll leave me like the others. And that's tiring, because the other person isn't here to prove anything, but you insist on turning every relationship into a courtroom. The search for approval. You say what you think the other person wants to hear. You mold yourself. You adapt. You diminish yourself. You do everything you can to avoid losing the person, but in the process, he loses himself. And ironically, those who deny themselves too much end up distancing themselves because they become invisible. The fear of showing yourself for real. You hold back opinions, hide feelings, feign indifference, and you think this is maturity, but it's fear. Fear of not being accepted, fear of being rejected. And how will others connect with you if you never show your entire self? Jealousy disguised as care. You ask, you control, you watch, and you call it love. But love doesn't suffocate. True love gives space. What suffocates is the anxiety of trying to predict betrayal before it even happens. Self-sabotage. You create premature endings. This isn't going to work anyway. It's only a matter of time until it ends. And since he already believes in the end, he acts as if he were already there. And of course, it ends up happening. These signs are like cracks in a wall. You can pretend you don't see, but the more you ignore it, the more the wall loses strength, until it collapses. And maybe this is what has been happening to you. People aren't leaving because they're bad, or because you don't deserve love. They are leaving because their anxiety creates an environment of tension where there is no emotional rest. No one can stand living in a state of alert all the time. Neither do you. Neither does the other. And here's the hard part. These signs are repeated choices. And until you recognize them, you will keep repeating them. Therefore, I challenge you now. Which of these signs do you see in yourself? What patterns have destroyed your relationships? What phrases have you used to push away people who tried to get close to you? Healing begins with awareness. And awareness begins when you stop running from your own shadow. If this is giving you a flash of clarity, subscribe and like. It helps others who are emotionally lost, as you may have been. Imagine you're sitting in front of Jordan Peterson and you decide to open your heart. You say with tears in your eyes that your relationships never work out, that people leave, that you feel like there is something broken in you. He wouldn't give you a sweet, superficial answer. He wouldn't pat you on the head and tell you everything is going to be okay. He would look you straight in the eye and say something like, if everything is going wrong in your relationships, maybe it's not bad luck. Maybe it's you. Maybe it's the way you're presenting yourself to the world, shaped by an internal chaos you haven't yet faced. And this is where many back down, because it hurts to assume that part of the responsibility lies within yourself. But this is the necessary pain, the pain of the truth that sets you free. Peterson interprets anxiety not just as a clinical condition, but as a reflection of internal disorder. He sees it as a sign that you're living below your potential, paralyzed by ghosts you refuse to face. For him, when you act out of anxiety, you are letting the dragon of chaos control your life. This dragon is the sum of your fears, insecurities, and traumas, and the more you run away from it, the more it grows, until you completely master your relationships, your career, your own identity. You need to hear this. Your relationship anxiety isn't just a personal problem. She is a symptom of a larger disorder, the inability to put order in one's own emotional life. Peterson would say something like, life is suffering, but if you stand up for it with courage, you can give meaning to that suffering, and that's what makes it bearable. Translation: you can't expect your relationships to work out while you keep running away from your pain. You cannot ask for understanding from others if you do not understand yourself. You cannot demand loyalty if you live divided within yourself. It's strong, I know, but it is true. And if you have the courage to listen to this without running away, you will begin to see something important. The problem isn't that you don't deserve love. The problem is that you haven't yet learned to show yourself completely. Anxiety makes you hide who you are, pretend stability, disguise fear with control. And this creates a relationship based on masks. But a relationship based on masks is doomed to failure. Peterson would call this self-deception. And he would say, without hesitation, stop lying to yourself. Tell the truth. At least, don't tell what you know to be a lie. What does this mean in practice? That you need to start seeing your anxiety as part of who you are, not something to hide. You need to stop pretending everything is okay when it's not. You need to honestly admit when fear is taking over, because only then can someone truly connect with you, not with your mask, but with its essence. This is Peterson's gaze, hard, direct, but transformative. And maybe that's exactly what you need right now. Not more cheap comfort, but the courage to finally see yourself as you really are. So far, we've seen how anxiety undermines your relationships, sabotages your bonds, and creates patterns that keep you from what you desire most. But there comes a time when it's no longer enough to just understand the problem. We need to talk about solutions. On the way back. And the return begins with one word: courage. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is acting despite fear. It's exposing yourself when everything inside you is asking you to hide. It's telling the truth when it would be more comfortable to keep the mask on. Jordan Peterson insists on this idea. Truth is what sustains the world. Without truth, nothing stands. And your relational life will only be sustainable when it is built on truth, even if that truth reveals fragility. So, the first step on the way back is this: stop pretending. Stop pretending you're okay when you're not. Stop pretending you don't care when you actually care a lot. Stop pretending you're not afraid when that fear screams inside you. Showing yourself vulnerable is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of emotional maturity. It's proof that you're ready to live real relationships, not just pretend ones. But here arises the most common objection. What if I show myself and they don't like me? What if I reveal my anxiety and they reject me? The answer is harsh, but liberating. Then this person was not for you. Because if someone only stays with you when you hide who you are, then that relationship isn't love. It's a contract based on disguise. True love is not born from perfection. It is born from authenticity. And if you don't allow yourself to be seen, you will never truly be loved. The second step on the way back is subserve oneself without judgment. Start noticing your patterns. When jealousy appears, recognize it. When fear screams, listen. When the charge comes up, write it down. You won't transform your anxiety overnight, but every time you watch without running away, You take away her power to secretly control your life. The third step is create rituals of presence. It could be writing down what you feel in a diary. It could be practicing a few minutes of silence every day. It could be taking walks without a cell phone, just breathing. These rituals serve to train the mind to return to the present, because anxiety always drags you into the future, to scenarios that may never happen. And when you learn to anchor your attention in the now, you discover that the danger you so fear is almost never here. And the fourth step is open yourself to relationships with authenticity, not with expectations. Stop looking for someone to heal your wounds. Stop waiting for someone to prove themselves. Enter into each connection with the willingness to show yourself completely, even if it scares you, because only then will you have the chance to experience something real. And even if it hurts, it will be an honest pain, very different from the pain of living pretending to be someone you are not. This is the way back. Courage to be, truth to show, presence to anchor yourself, and vulnerability to connect. There is no other. But if you walk this path, you'll begin to realize that the right people don't shy away from your truth. They approach her. Have you ever noticed that your anxiety demands an impossible thing from you? She demands perfection. It demands that you never make mistakes. May you never show yourself fragile. May it always please you. May it be so good, so available, so understanding, that the other person never has a reason to leave. But you know what happens? The more you try to be perfect, the further away you get from what is real. And no one can love a character. Jordan Peterson insists, life is not about being perfect, but about carrying the burden of imperfection with dignity. Translation: you don't have to fix every detail to be worthy of love. You need to be truthful. Perfection creates fear, because if you believe that you will only be loved when you are impeccable, any flaw becomes a threat. Any criticism becomes a sentence. Any silence turns into rejection. And then you enter the cycle that feeds anxiety the most, thinking you need to prove your worth all the time. But here's the revelation that could change your life. Love is not won through performance. Love is built on authenticity. Think of someone who has had a profound impact on you. It wasn't because that person was perfect. It was because she was present, because you connected with something real in her. Now I ask, how can someone truly connect with you if you spend your life hiding behind anxiety, trying to maintain control? The truth is, you deserve to be loved just the way you are, with your flaws, with your fears, with your mistakes. But to do that, you need to allow yourself to be seen. And here comes a central point. Chronic self-criticism is a poison that you ingest every day. You demand so much of yourself that there is no room left to breathe. You condemn yourself so much that any gesture of affection seems suspicious. And when someone tries to love you, that love hits a wall, because deep down you think, if that person knew who I really was, they would leave. But let me tell you something clearly. Maybe it's not true. Maybe the person is just waiting for you to show yourself completely so they can love your imperfections too. Peterson calls this carry the cross, not only in the religious sense, but as a symbol of life. You carry your pains, your failures, your limitations, and yet he walks. Yet he chooses to show himself. This is the path to true relationships. Do not hide your cross, but finding someone who is willing to walk by your side, even when the weight is heavy. You don't have to be perfect. You need to be honest. You need to stop demanding the impossible from yourself. You need to accept that being human is being flawed, and that precisely, in that flaw lies the chance for real connection, because no one connects perfectly. People connect with vulnerability, and if you stop fighting it, you'll realize something profound. Love doesn't require you to be flawless. He demands that you be whole. If this message resonates with you, sign up now. This helps spread this kind of reflection to those who need it most. You help, and you also help yourself. We have reached the final point of this reflection, but the period here doesn't mean end, it means beginning, because from now on you can no longer pretend you don't know. You can no longer hide behind the excuse that you don't understand why everything goes wrong with people. You understood, and he understood clearly. Anxiety is not just a detail of your life. It is the lens through which you have been interpreting the world. And until you accept this, you will continue to live in fragile, superficial relationships that are doomed to failure. But there is a choice, and this choice needs to be made not once but every day. Escape or presence. Escape is the known path. It's about protecting yourself ahead of time. It is destroying what could be love to avoid the risk of being hurt. It's repeating old patterns, expecting different results. It's living on autopilot, believing that bad luck and destiny are to blame for your failures. Presence is the path to courage. It's being here, now, even when you're afraid. It's exposing yourself, even without guarantees. It's trusting that the future can be different if you act differently. It's about stopping living as a victim of the past and starting to take responsibility for the present. Jordan Peterson always insists on this. Responsibility is the path to meaning, and maybe that's what's missing in your life. Taking real responsibility for what you feel, for what you choose, for what you convey. You can't control whether someone stays or leaves. You can't guarantee that you'll never be hurt, but you can decide whether you will continue living as a slave to anxiety or whether you will take a courageous stance in life. And this decision is not theoretical. It manifests itself in small daily choices. When you feel the urge to charge, choose to breathe. When you feel like running away, choose to stay a little longer. When you think about hiding, choose to show yourself. When you want to control, choose to trust. These choices seem small, but they are internal revolutions. They are the building blocks of who you are. And remember, true love is not guaranteed by the absence of flaws. It is born when two people choose day after day to remain present for each other, not because they are not afraid, but because they decided not to let fear rule. This is the invitation for you today. Stop running away. Stop hiding. Stop living as if your anxiety is an inevitable fate. You have the power to choose. And each day, when you wake up, this choice will be before you. Will I live on the run, or will I live in presence? Only you can answer. But know this, your life, your relationships, your inner peace, everything depends on this answer. And I challenge you, choose presence, choose courage, choose the truth, even if it hurts, even if it scares you, even if it seems impossible. Because it is in this act of choosing every day that you will begin to experience something you may never have truly experienced. The freedom to be whole, even imperfect, and still worthy of love. If this resonated with you, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe because this journey doesn't end here. You may have just begun the biggest transformation of your life.